All right, welcome to another episode of Medicine Mondays. I am yours truly, Dr. Pierre. Remember, if you are overwhelmed by this healthcare system, underappreciated by this healthcare system, you just been looking for a voice of reason, you have found it here. Yours truly, Dr. Barry. And this week is going to be part 2 of last week's episode. If you have not had a chance to catch last week's episode, I suggest you pause, catch last week's episode up where I talk about 5 action steps to have a healthier 2023, and then come back to this episode here. Like, let's do that for me, right? But let's say, you know what, I ain't gonna do that, Dr. Barry. What are we talking about today? Today, we're gonna be talking about 4 or 5 action steps that I personally want to take for 2023 to make sure I have a healthier 2023. Because how many of us, and just think about this, how many of us have to, sit there and listen to people do things or tell you to do things, and you're looking at them like, all right, are you even following the things that you are doing? And I think as a healthcare provider, content creator, one who does the education on this side here, like I have to practice what I preach, right? Or it tends to fall on fluff. Now I do understand that for a lot of people give physicians passes. Like they do all the time. They give us pass, and I think it's because they figure, hey, you know what? This person's like crazy smart. And like I know they know what they're talking about, even if they're not necessarily practicing it, right? So when you see that physician who says, you know what, who's smoking cigarettes, but then telling everyone not to smoke cigarettes, you're like, okay, clearly they're smart enough to know that you should be smoking cigarettes, but if they got an addiction, they got an addiction. Like everyone is human. So I think they do tend to give us that grace. But like I want to, again, and if you caught last week's episode, you know that I say, hey, you know what? We have to plan some goals, but more importantly, you have to tell people your goals, find the people who are going to help you achieve those goals, and then work on trying to take action steps on those goals and then reevaluate them to make sure you're doing what you need to do, right? So this is kind of my 5-step process that I'm kind of going through you guys personally, because again, I gave y'all homework last week because I want you to be able to kind of take this kind of rubric, this process, and to be able to kind of apply it to your own, whichever your goal is. So I have several goals, right? I got them written down here of things I want to do as we head into 2023. Now, at the time of this recording, by the time you're reading this, it's actually my birthday week, right? So I'm turning 40 December 15th. Shout out to the Sagittarius out there. We are loved, appreciated, and hated at the same time. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm just here. I'm just a messenger for all the Sagittarius who can't seem to understand why some people hate us, right? Not we were loved by a lot of people, but some people hate us. I don't know why. They think we're nonchalant, and I don't know. It's kind of crazy to me. But so I'm recording this, the eve per se of my birthday. I'm turning 40, big 40. A lot of excitement around that. In fact, depending on when you're listening to this, especially if you listen to this the week that this drops, like I'm not even in the United States, right? I'm not here. I'm out. My wife has said, you know what? Like you work so hard, I'm taking you out of the country because I know if I don't take you out of the country, you're probably still going to work, right? And which again, obviously, is going to make a list of mine for goals of 2023. So by the time especially if you're listening to this on the debut, the week of, I ain't even here, y'all. I'm not even here. Wish me good luck. Wish me safe travels so I can get back to y'all for the following week. But so let's talk about some of the certain goals that I have in my mind that I want to be able to partake in 2023 and take action steps in 2023. And the framework that I'm going to be talking about today is going to be kind of going the same kind of process I talked about last week, right? And I'm going to obviously refer to last week a lot. So if you caught last week's episode, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you're a little lost, go back, listen to last week's episode. Especially, you should be a subscriber of the show or a subscriber of the podcast, depending on if you're listening to this or watching this. So I want to talk about like kind of my 5 steps and then how I'm going to enlist, the action prompts that I had last week for it, right? So of course, the first step is just, hey, what are my goals, right? What are my goals that I have that I think if I help achieve those goals, if I achieve those goals, I'm going to have a great outlook by the time I turn 41. Like, what are those things, right? So I wrote them off. Obviously, health, right? Making sure that my health is in check. More importantly, from a weight perspective, right? Like I'm one of these obese doctors, right? And I want to not be as obese, right? So I'm going to be weight loss is number one. Workload stress, and stress is kind of in quotation marks because I talk about this all the time. Medicine is such an amazing thing for me, right? It's changed my life, changed my family's life, and all those things under the sun. That I don't get stress going to work. I like going to work. I work a lot, right? For those who may not know, not only am I a hospitalist at an acute care facility, I'm a hospitalist at a long-term care facility. I'm a medical director at a couple like I work a lot, right? And sometimes I'll do nights. Like I work a lot. But for me, it's not stressful, but I understand the act of going to work, means you can't spend time over here, you can't spend time over there, right? So I'm talking about workload stress, right? I'm talking about oral health. That's a big one, right? Again, I'm an internal medicine physician, right? But I want to make sure, especially, right, as I continue to turn the light on and record myself, right, making sure that not only am I taking care of my physical health, but my oral health becomes a priority next year as well. My education content, and this is more personal, right, in regards to, all right, what type of education am I consuming that's going to help the Lunch and Learn community audience as well as help myself, right? So we're going to talk about that as well. And rest, right? Rest, sleep, everything kind of under the sun. We have this, my wife calls this kind of this hustle mentality where we're always just trying to run and work. I sleep when I'm dead type craziness, right? Now, I don't do that, right? But I could definitely put more of a focus, right? And for those who are listening or watching, remember, when we're plotting goals, right? We don't, these goals don't have to be extravagant. They don't have to be like life changing per se. They could just be little small things that say, hey, you know what? If I just do this little small thing a little bit better, like in the long run, my life is better, right? So, because like I said, I'm not a long sleeper, right? But I'm also not I'm a work throughout the night type, but I could definitely put more of a focus there, right? So first step, obviously planning the goals. Next step, telling the goals, right? So again, if you are watching me, if you are listening, right, you know that like, all right, boom, he's already on step 2, right? All right, so what do we do next, right? So remember we talked about, right, what do you need to do to make sure that the goals you're partaking in are going to be successful, right? So let's talk about just kind of the weight loss in general. This year, no, sorry, for next year, a couple things that a couple of people I plan on enlisting to kind of help with my team. One, I want an actual personal trainer, right? And the reason why I want a personal trainer, yes, I can go to YouTube and all these other places to kind of see different exercise, habits and tips and tricks and all that. But when I want to go to the gym, I kind of want this is sometimes we need that like big brother, big sister over us to be like, okay, you're doing it correctly, you're not doing it correctly. Because again, I'm in a internal medicine position. I know what I do very well, and I know what I don't do very well, right? So when I go to gym, instead of me going to freestyle it, I want to go in with a game plan of action, right? So I already got a good friend of mine who's a personal trainer. Shout out to my boy Wagner. So we're gonna be listing Wagner as a personal trainer for 2023. So he's gonna help get me right. As well as we had Dr. Sylvia on board, right? She's our America's obesity medicine specialist, and she talked about, especially for those who are overweight, a lot of times we think that. And she had a great analogy, right? When you're talking about starting a race. And a lot of times when we're on this race, this path to lose weight, we think that we're all starting at the same, starting point. And then we just need to run a little bit faster than everybody else. But what tends to happen is that when you're overweight, obese, right, you're further back more than you're like way behind the line. So even if you run faster, you never really play catch up, right? So I'm looking to see if I can enlist like, obesity medicine specialists just to kind of help kind of plan out what we're going to do for the following year is going to be like a part of the game plan, right? Because again, I just think it just helps more often than not just to get to that next step right here. So once we start, and obviously you know me, right? Once I kind of start those paths and journeys, I'm going to be letting you guys know, right? So make sure you follow me on either TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. I'll probably do it on either Facebook or TikTok. That would probably be the two platforms that I'll talk about that journey as well, right? So that'll be kind of helping the weight loss perspective, helping the exercise perspective. And both of those people can definitely help us from a nutritional standpoint. But if I see that, hey, you know what, I may need to get a nutritionist on board just to kind of plot my day, my week out, that might happen as well too. So again, stay tuned for that aspect of it. So number two, right, workload stress. Like, what am I going to be doing as far as workload stress, right? One thing, and one person I love to help enlist is my wife, right? Why? It's because she understands that she don't really operate well if the workload and the balance and everything is kind of off. So when I talk about like, hey, I'm going on vacation, I'm going here, I'm going there, more often than not, she's the one planning it. Like, ask me right now, like, if you told me, hey, Dr. Barry, like, yeah, you're going out of town, where are you going? Like, she's planning all of that, right? Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of showing up. So that's kind of her thing, right? So we're going to be enlisting family, especially my wife, to kind of help, kind of navigate this kind of workload, family load structure to balance a little bit better. Like I said, I'm going as I speak. When I'm recording this, I'm going out the country. I do plan on being more proactive in scheduling things where I'm not working. How many of us, right? Let's think. I want y'all to think about this. We're already in December. How many of us actually scheduled and planned not to work? Because a lot of us schedule and plan our day to work, but how many of us have scheduled and planned not to work? Because for many of us, like, we just know work, and we just keep it moving. We enjoy what we do, so we don't even think about it. So we never even make an effort to plan not doing it. So next year, right, 2023, I'm going to have much more time blocks where I'm planning not to work. Whether that's like going out of town, going out whatever that thing kind of entails, it's going to entail me not necessarily working. Now, mind you, then before y'all go run off, right? No, Dr. Barry is not retiring anytime soon, even though I do want to retire like fairly young. And when I tell people, I want to retire like 45, which is what it is, right? So I do want to retire early, but like not next year, right? That ain't happening. So with definitely making an effort, right? Working with people who like to, vacation and plan to do all the things there. Obviously, my wife and everyone else. That's going to be a goal of mine for 2023. Like, what can I do where I am planning not working? Like, I already know the plans to work, but not what can I do where I am planning not working? That's going to be a goal, and that's where we're going to be needing assistance for. And when I record this episode next year, you'll know if I did a good job doing it. Oral health. I have a child, not childhood, an amazing friend of mine, Martha Ducatel, Healthy Bodies Medical and Dental Center. Also my great friend Watson Ducatel. He's the medical side. She's the dental side. I'm gonna help. I'm gonna enlist her work in getting me right as well too. Right. So shout out to Martha Ducatel. She just had her 40th birthday a few weeks ago. It was absolutely amazing. She's amazing. That family's amazing. But we're going to be incorporating her because as I continue to, get on these cameras, get on these, social media platforms and record and educate. I got to make sure my teeth is right. It just is what it is. I'm vain. Hey, sue me. I'm Sagittarius, right? I think that's what they say. They say we're vain too. So shout out to the Sagittarius of the world. Resting more, I think it's self-explanatory. And it's one of those things where, again, just like I plan to work, I need to plan to rest, right? Everything has to be a very proactive, thing for a lot of people, right? It doesn't resting doesn't just come to a lot of people, right? Vacationing doesn't come to a lot of people, right? It comes to a lot of people very easily. Working, overworking, burning out, stress, that comes very easy to a lot of people. We don't want that to occur, so we're not going to let that occur, right? So yeah, shout out to planning and putting down. Because remember, all of this talk, we can do it. We can do all day, but if we're not putting it down, like I said, I got this thing written down. I got it written down so I can look myself in the mirror and I can look at you guys and be like, yeah, I did say I was going to rest more. Like, am I actually holding myself accountable? Like, am I holding myself accountable to the things I say I want to do? And last but not least, kind of the education enrichment. for a lot of the stuff that I do here with Lunch Learn Community, on especially the YouTube show, it's about how do I educate the community. And more importantly, not only do I need to educate community, but making sure I'm educating myself in all various fashions. Now, when I was a program director, it was actually very easy to do so because my job and goal was to help train the physicians who are the future physicians out of the world who are going to help save your lives. So there was no way I could be out here not being the most up to date on journal articles and everything else. It just wouldn't fly that way. But now that I'm not a program director, I've been chilling, right? I've been relaxing, right? Now, of course, when I'm doing the stuff we do here for our show, or we're talking about monkeypox, talking about COVID, and those things there, I'm up to date because I have to be up to date because that's the news that everyone wants to hear. But I'm definitely going to make it a point, especially for 2023, to kind of have a goal. Like, hey, once a week, I want to have at least one article read, dissected, do what I need to do, right? Just once a week. Right. And I ain't gonna start too crazy, but I know because I can read these articles pretty quickly. But like if I dedicate myself and say, hey, you know what, every Wednesday, let's say now, every Wednesday we're gonna read one journal article. Boom. Every Wednesday, by the end of that year, I would have read again over 50 plus journal articles on top of the extra stuff I already read, which is going to put me so far ahead of the next person. And again, I may not see the significant results that first year, but after year 5 of continuing to make sure I dedicate myself, that's over 200 articles of medicine, of education that I'm enriching myself, right, to kind of help enrich the community, right? So it's just one of those things where when I help myself, the community gets helped as well, too, right? So that's a goal of mine that I'm putting down the paper, right? And I don't really need to enlist anybody. I can just look at myself, say, hey, this is your goal. You told the Lunch Learn community the goal that you wanted to do. So now you got to hold yourself accountable for doing said goal, right? So definitely excited about that. And what I could do, right now I think about it, what I could do is maybe I make like a little blog post or something, maybe like a review post on the site. That way you guys know, like, oh, hey, this is what Dr. Bear is reading this week. Like, as a fact, we'll put it out there. I just started that idea on the fly, and I like that idea on the fly. So again, just more of an accountability standpoint. So like, so if you're following, especially if you follow the email list, make sure you get on my listserv. Links will be, description will be in the show notes. If you're on the listserv, we'll make sure that we have this is what Dr. Barry read this week, and we'll put it on the website for you guys, right? So again, those are just kind of my 5 things, my 5 goals that I know that if I work on, by the time I'm recording this for 2024, I'm going to be like, wow, you know what? We killed those goals here. And what we'll do is that we'll actually come back to this episode next year. We'll my editing team we'll put in clips and whatnot and say like, hey, remember when we talked about doing this year? Boom, this is how this turned out. Like, that's going to be our goal at hand, right? Shout out to y'all. And again, shout out to the Lunch Learn community for continuing, to keep me on my toes, right? And keep me making sure that I'm up to date. So you guys are up to date as well, right? I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Again, by the time you're watching this, I'm not going to be in the United States. So shout out to my wife for planning that. Again, 40th coming and in because the 40th birthday. You remember what we do on my birthdays, right? Remember what we plan around my birthdays, right? We got to get our annual physical exam done, right? Just to get our wellness exam done, get everything checked up for us and ready to go for 2024. So we have a kind of a good baseline, right? So again, I am yours truly, Dr. Barry Pierre. I'm gonna see you guys next week.